shake start to this week is a rather bright one as the startup ecosystem is brewing more fundings and collaborations. I'm Radhika Udas and you are watching the Daily Dispatch. The companies that are making news today are Oyo, Zetwork and Bira 91. Our first story today, tech giant Microsoft has invested around $5 million in hospitality startup Oyo. According to sources, this deal might see Oyo shifting to Microsoft's cloud services platform Azure. Oyo, which is also headed for IPO, is now standing at a valuation of $9.6 billion. They've also recently raised $660 million in debt from global investors. Moving to our next update, Zetwork, which is a B2B marketplace for custom manufacturing, becomes India's youngest unicorn after raising $150 million in Series E round of funding. This round was led by D1 Capital Partners, Sequoia, and Axel Partners. It is the startup's second fundraise this year after its Series D funding of $120 million in February. Our third story today, reports suggest that craft beer company Bira 91 has raised around $20 million in its Series D funding round. Just a while back, the company had raised $30 million from Japan's Kirin Holdings with a 10% stake. The company was founded by Ankur Jain in 2015 and it competes with the likes of Kingfisher, Heineken, Carlsberg and more.
Well, moving on to our second segment, I have with me someone who's made their mark in the Ayurveda space. I have with me Vivek Sahni from Kama Ayurveda. Thank you very much, Vivek, for joining us today on the Daily Dispatch. I want to begin by asking you about the last couple of months. It clearly seems that India and the world has embraced Ayurveda and everything that's to do with getting better health and better skin and better immunity with the help of Ayurveda. So for Kama, how has this really shaped up and what kind of growth have you seen over the last couple of months?
I think we should speak about the year and not about the month because this pandemic has been, it's been a very interesting journey because we were primarily a brick and mortar company. We had about 58 stores and about 30% of our business was 25% of our business was online. The majority of it was stores. So when the stores shut in the lockdown happened in March, April, we were kind of like flummoxed because suddenly the entire business was shut. But then as the online businesses started opening up in May with our partners, we saw a very big demand and a very big jump in our online on our own site and our partner sites. A very big jump, but I guess also a pent-up demand of all the people who've not been shopping. But we also saw over the year, to answer your question, as this question of immunity kept coming up, because as we got to know more about the disease, this whole idea of immunity, this thing of immunity being strong, being healthy. I think that really made people want to come back to using clean products. So even the stuff they eat, what you put into your body and what you actually apply on the surface of using clean products, of using natural products, trying to keep your body as strong as possible. And I think this was something which is very interesting and has really, I think, helped all companies in the natural space, including us. And I think over the year, because there's been so much talk online about the natural space, about natural immunity, about plant-based materials, I think and people are basically, because you can't go out, you're pretty much hooked online in some form or the other, whether it's your iPad or through social media or through news, whatever you're looking at. I think a lot of that has really increased the interest in natural products.
Talk to us about what kind of products are people buying, what categories within your portfolio are doing well at this point in time, what kind of trends have you been seeing panning out?
In any case, our bestsellers are skin and hair. We have a hair oil, rose water, face oils, face creams. And I think that's what we found is that, those have all grown exponentially. We've actually just launched an all-natural shampoo, which has just been launched and it's already doing very, very well. I guess one of the reasons for skin and hair is because your face is so close up. On a call that this. I mean, so you're not going out with a mask, but we're facing each other, and every pore is kind of visible if you zoom in. So I think the awareness of what you put on your hair and what you put on your face, I think really I think got amplified even more. And because people are just doing FaceTime calls, or they were doing WhatsApp calls, or they were doing Zoom, or whatever they were doing, and when you're close up on your phone, basically everything up there is visible. So I think we found that the skin and hair care really boomed for us.
Right, that's an interesting insight. I want to talk to you about the kind of expansion that you're planning going forward. Any more categories that you're planning to expand into? So, what can we expect in the rest of the year?
So our core. So let's put it this way: we did two things. One is over the last couple of years, we started doing clinical trials on all our key products. And this is primarily to prove how efficacious Ayurveda is. So it's one thing to say, it's an age-old tested recipe, it's 2000 years old and it's amazing, but where's the proof? So, here are clinical trials. We worked with a company, we did clinical trials on X number of people. So there's a clinical trial for this, for your falling hair, for dark circles, for pigmentation on the creams. So we did clinical trials on that base. And we found that, with these clinical trials, so there's Ayurveda and then there's science, we kind of merged it. And they work. So the products actually work. There's a clinical trial which is proven to show that these products work. It's not fiction. It's not my grandmother's recipe. It's a grandmother's recipe which works, proven by science, because the clinical trials obviously use different parameters to examine what the effectiveness of it is, and they use measurements, they use instruments to figure all of this out. And based on that, we just launched an Ayurvedic shampoo, an Ayurveda-based shampoo. It's based on an Ayurvedic recipe. The Bringari shampoo, again, all natural. And it's again, so even pre-launching it, we did clinical trials. So normally we did the clinical trials for the earlier stuff afterwards. Now before we launched it, we spent a year doing the clinical trials, figuring everything out, and we've just launched it. And going forward, we have about 3 or 4 more products coming out. Pretty much all in this whole problem solution space, because that's where we are. We are, we're not an experiential brand. We're basically a brand which is there to help you with your skincare, hair care, and body care issues. So the products are, in the skincare and hair care, range. It's expanded. Some more, 2, 3 more things in skin, a couple of more things in hair. Again, in the all natural, clean Ayurveda space, because that's again our specialty. And so products that work, which help your skin, which help your hair, which help your body, and that's the space we are in. And I think coming back to your first question, this thing of how people's habits have changed. I think a lot of people now want clean products that work, as against just wanting to try, So while you try a nice shower gel, and you can try different fragrances, like I like Neroli, or I like jasmine, or I like tuberose, or whatever, Rajnigandha, whatever you like. So you experiment with them, because it's a body wash, ditto with soaps. But once you find something that works for your skin and hair, because there's so much pollution, there's so much thing, people have irritation, they have their skins become sensitive. So once you find a product that works for your skin, the chances of you moving to something else become much more difficult. And that's what we found that's where our key loyalty base is in people who love our products and will continue to use them. So that's the area which we are expanding into.
Right. In terms of fundraise, are you looking at some sort of fundraise in the year ahead, considering that you have some aggressive expansion plans that are lined up?
No, we have no things. We already, I think, touch wood, we are in good shape as far as that goes. We actually had a partnership with a big Spanish company called Puig, who invested in us 2 years ago. 2.5 years ago. So we're good as far as that goes.
Right. And the final question before I let you go on your revenue and growth numbers at the end of FY22, what kind of targets do you have in terms of revenue and growth? If you could give us some sort of short-term and medium-term targets.
I would love to give you targets. Um, Unfortunately, there's a there's a pandemic out there which has taken all our targets and flown them around into God knows what. So I could say I have a target of 60% growth over last year or 70% growth over last year because last year was really bad. I would love to say that, but whether they're going to materialize, I have no idea because literally there are too many ifs and ands. There's too many variables. Because God happens if there's a third wave, we're shut down again for 2 months. Then 2 months you have no revenue. Then what do you do? So there are too many
So
flexibles.
then let me
And ideally, yeah. I mean, we will be looking at hopefully a 50% growth over last year for sure.
No, so let me frame this in another way. Over the next 5 years, considering that the short term is still a little fluid and we don't know what's happening, I'm sure 5 years down the line, Kama has some targets in terms of achieving a certain X amount of revenue. So if you could share that with us.
Let's put it this way. Until this last year and a half or 2 years, we had a 50% growth rate. And I'm hoping we should be able to go back up to close that over the next 5 years.
Well, on that note, Mr. Sahni, thank you very much for joining us on the Daily Dispatch. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
That's a wrap to today's episode. We'll see you again at 5 p.m. tomorrow. Until then, have a good evening.